Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to go over the NHL 22 draft. I'm going to go over my rankings and I'm going to highlight some players and what I like and dislike about these players. From a number of these players I only saw film from between 5 to a half hours, so that is based on my analysis and we're going to get right into it. So here are my final rankings, and I decided to keep Shane Wright at number one. As the more I went over the list and watched more players, it was hard to keep him at number one, um, as I just felt there were a few players within the tier of the top six, even top seven, that uh, were right there with him, and it was hard to keep him at number one, but I just think he's a player with elite hockey IQ. He has the ability to slow the play down and recognize the soft areas on the ice. And I think the best thing about him is how much composure and he plays with and his poise with the puck. He never overhandles, always looks for the quick, simple option. And his greatest asset is his puck control and passing ability. I just think that kind of separated him from being top tier. And I believe if he gets a little more explosive, especially with his edge work, this could be a dominant player in the National Hockey League. And for player comparison, I compared him to John Tavares. I just thought they were a very similar player, um, in puck control and puck protection and vision. So moving on, Logan Cooley at two. Logan Cooley is a player I fell in love with. His elusiveness and edge work ability, his ability to, off the rush, capitalize on these quick off the rush plays was something special. And like I said, it was hard to put him at two and have Shane Wright over him. But I just believe the biggest thing was Shane Wright's just a safer pick than Logan Cooley. However, Logan Cooley, it's so hard not to see like Jack Hughes and Trevor Zegras in his game. It's probably exactly the player he will become. And if he gets a little stronger, and especially at the NHL level, he won't get. That's what I was afraid of, him getting knocked off the puck when he tries these elusive escape turns. But I believe he will find that and is easily a top three pick in this year's draft. So now moving on to Slafkowski. Slafkowski is a player that was ranked number one on some list, and he was at number one at one point for myself, and he gradually fell to three, just because I thought Shane Wright and Logan Cooley have proved it for a number of years now, and um, I just think they have more of an upside than Slafkowski. So for Slafkowski, I still think he's a very smart hockey player with powerful strides and puck protection skills. And his shot is sneaky and accurate and shoots. He recognizes when he should shoot, and you'll never think like someone could score in a situation, and Slafkowski will get it done. Um, and it's so hard not to see guys like Barkov and Malkin in his game. I think that's his upside, and he he could easily be. I can't see him slipping past four, honestly. So very high upside player. Next, I have David Jiricek at four. David Jiricek was the player I was a little scared about with his injury, and even before learning about his injury, I thought he looked like an injury-prone player. But however, it's hard not to fall in love with this player. Great skater for his size, and he has a hard shot and takes great shot selections. Great puck protection and defensive awareness, especially with his stick checking, um, stick positioning. He reads and breaks up plays well. I think he's quick in his neutral zone and D zone transitions, and he angles players off very well. He's a player with high compete and is willing to do the dirty things to win the hockey game. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. I can't see him slipping. I wouldn't be surprised. He'll definitely be a top 5 pick in this year's draft. Um, Things I could see teams be concerned about is he sometimes looks for the home run play, the harder play when he should go a little more for the easier pass. But I can't, like, for player comparison in the NHL, it's hard not to see like Colton Parenko and Brett Burns in him, Seth Jones. Like, I think that's his upside, and he has that offensive ability just like those 3 players do. So very safe, great option for any NHL team. Next, I have Matthew Savoy at number 5. This I actually just changed before making the video. Um, so what I loved about Matthew Savoy was just his elite edge work and explosive stride. It was hard not to fall in love with it. However, I think there are a few players that fall within his category. But it was just his finishing ability that put him above those players, and players that stand out to me that he's very similar to are like Frank Nazar and Noah Utslund and Brad Lambert. Um, but I just think his high hockey IQ and finishing ability put him above those players. And he's very gritty for his size, and he's not afraid to throw the body as well. And it was hard not to see like Mitch Marner in him. So a player that could explode if he's put in the right situation. Next, I have Simon Nemec at 6. Simon Nemec fell a little in my draft board, but that was just because of his complexity of his game. I think the more I watched him, the more I felt he was a simple defenseman with great skating and edge work ability, and also, his best asset was his vision and tape-to-tape passing, and also I think he takes smart shot selections. But at times, I just thought there wasn't as crazy upside in him. I think he could become a Quinn Hughes type of player, but I also could see like a Nick Leddy situation in him. So that's why I'm not too sold on Simon Nemec, but the fact that he was able to play against men for 2 years now and put up great numbers in Slovakia, just stands out. Next, we're going to get into Marco Kasper. So Marco Kasper, at first glance, was a player I did not like and had him a lot lower. But the more I watched him, the more I saw the difference between him and a lot of players in this draft. I think his work ethic and tenacity is definitely among the best in this draft, and his awareness and positioning skills was very good. And the fact that in the SHL he was, able to not dominate, I'd say, but stand out, especially his skating ability, and ability to protect the puck against men was very definitely caught my attention. And he still has the ability to finish when put in the right situations. So this is a player I definitely really like, and I can't see him being a draft bust whatsoever. Next, we're going to get into the player that's probably the most interesting and all over the place on every draft board, and that's Brad Lambert at 8. Brad Lambert was a player that was impossible not to like with his exceptional skating ability. I just think it's kind of the whole package skater, similar to Savoy, Nazar, and Otslund. Um, he still had great vision with his playmaking, and I think his escapability um, is a huge plus to his game. And, he played against men, and you can say he wasn't playing in the best situation, and Players fall into these, like, oh, I'm not supposed to score type of mindset. And I feel like that kind of snuck into his head. And, a lot of negativity was pushed on him. But it's hard not to believe in this player. It really isn't. Like, in 2 to 3 years with that type of skating ability, oh, he can definitely become a very, very good National Hockey League player just just from that standpoint. Next, we get into Joakim Kimmel at number 9. Joakim Kimmel was a player I actually had a little higher to begin with, and the more I watched him, the more he slightly fell. But 15 goals in the Liga at his age is just exceptional, and kind of a player. How could you say no with just that stat line? The more I watched him, the more I disliked his skating ability, but it's still good and obviously can improve, at his age. Um, I think he's a player with a lot of poise and puck control and someone who always wants the puck on his stick. And his greatest asset is definitely his shot. It's very sneaky. It's very accurate. His ice awareness, positioning is very good. But he definitely needs to improve on his explosiveness and also his shot selection. He was shooting from everywhere sometimes, even though they were good shots. Uh, I think he could utilize his teammates a little better. And for NHL player comparison, it was hard not to see like Alex DeBrincat in him. I just want to see his skating improve. Next is a player that flew up my draft board, and that's Liam Ogren. Liam Ogren was a player that I kind of fell in love with, and if you're looking for Slafkowski in this year's draft, the next player and obviously Slafkowski is going to be ranked in the top 5. You should be all over guys like Liam Ogren and Cutter Gauthier. But Liam Ogren stood out to me more than a guy like Cutter Gauthier just because of his high hockey IQ and ability to utilize his teammates better. His puck protection was elite and also had a strong playmaking ability and his poise with the puck. And it was so hard not to see Gabe Landeskog in him, right? And Barkov. More Gabe Landeskog though, and I just think he's a player with a lot of will and tenacity out there, and is 100% going to be a great National Hockey League player. Next, I have Jonathan Litternacki at 11. Jonathan Litternacki was a player not who I kind of bounced around with, but I just think he's a great skater and has high hockey IQ, especially with his vision, and develops plays and finds his teammates in a sneaky manner. Litternacki, Utslund, and Ogren were pretty amazing to watch as a line together. If any NHL team could grab all three, that would be so cool to see. However, that's so challenging as I think all three will definitely fall in the top 20. But here's a player that's kind of similar to Kimmel. And he takes a lot of shots. So, he could be taking a bad shot when he could be finding his teammate, but his shot's so good, so you want him shooting the puck. And it's hard not to see, like, William Nylander and Mikko Rantanen in him. Maybe not size like Rantanen, but, a similar play style. So definitely a player I'd like and has high top 6 potential. Next, I have Kevin Korchinski at 12. Oh my gosh. Trying to find a difference between Korchinski, Matejchuk, Mitinchuk, freak, I screwed that up. Minchukov, and Lane Hudson as well, I'll put into that category. It was very, very challenging to find any sort of difference between these players. Obviously there are, and Kevin Korchinski stood out, I guess, the most to me. Obviously he's a great skater and has great deception with his decision making. And I think his puck handling and passing accuracy put him above Mintachuk. Maybe not Matejchuk in that asset, but just his size and his 200-foot game, it was hard not to have him above those two. And for NHL player comparison, uh, you know, I guess like Josh Weger and dare I say Roman Yossi. I do see similarities in his game with Roman Yossi. However, I don't think he has that offensive upside like Yossi is. So I see him more in the Uyghur Seth Jones category, but definitely a player I think could develop into a potential top four defenseman, if not definitely a top six defenseman. Next, I have Cutter Gauthier at 13. Cutter Gauthier was a player that fell on my draft board. I had him in the top 8 at one point. The more I watched him, the more I disliked the player in just how he plays away from the puck, and I think he's a little unpredictable to his line mates in a sense when he drives the net or gets on his horse. He's slightly unpredictable to his line mates, but my God, this kid has a tremendous amount of skill and explosive stride. It was hard not to have him as a top tier in that top tier of the draft. And when I say that, I mean top five. Uh, However, it was just his play away from the puck and his recognition with positioning, I felt like was off, and is definitely something he could easily improve through, video and, maybe being a little less naive about his skill and his playmaking ability. So this is a player I definitely love, and just based on his shooting and skill and his first three steps are so explosive, especially for his size. Like, watch out. Um, Definitely a player who's a little more risky, though. Next, I'm going to get into Frank Nazar. So for Frank, another player with such explosive strides, and he could separate from defenders, before they even know it. And I think his stick handling is elite, and so is his hockey IQ. I would just love to see this kid shoot more after he creates space for himself. I think he's always looking to pass, which definitely hurt his production and where he falls on a lot of draft boards. But this player has so much upside just based on his, playmaking and skating ability. I definitely love this player. And next I have Noah Utslund, a player who is very similar to Frank, and a player who should definitely shoot more and work on his shot as well in the off season and his strength as well. However, for Utslund, it was his edge work, his deception, his decision-making ability, his positioning and his hockey IQ were just so high that it was hard to have him slip in my draft board. I think, given the right situation, this kid could explode in the National Hockey League if he puts on the size. Next, I have Matejchuk. Matejchuk was a player I actually really liked, just from his skating and his skating and edge work, and his shot was so hard, and I think he commands play. And for all these CHL players, Matejchuk, Korchinski, Mintachuk, I just think they overhandle at points, and that hurts them. And it makes them look worse, and it makes you think like, oh, are they going to overhandle against harder competition, and it'll create more turnovers for the other team, which was definitely something I disliked about these three. However, I still think they'll be able to become good National Hockey League players. But all three of them, I could see top four potential, but I could also see top six, or even especially like Minachuk, if he doesn't I don't know. I don't know. So now we'll get into Lane Hudson at 18. Lane Hudson was a player that every time I watched him, it was hard not to think Adam Fox. I think he's so smart with the puck, and Once he's under pressure, he moves it at least to an area where his teammate can get it, or it's a tape-to-tape pass. Also, walking the blue line, exceptional. I mean, if not exceptional, at least great. And I think he sees the ice very, very well, and is a great stick handler, and could become a great power play defenseman in the National Hockey League. Now, getting into Connor Geekie. Connor Geekie is a player that I could see even go higher in this year's draft because of his size and his elite offensive awareness. This guy just capitalizes. If this guy got it in the slot, you best believe it's in the back of the net. I think he has tremendous poise and good shot selection placement, and his hockey IQ, in the WHL just was far above a lot of players. And, for his size, he's also a great stick handler, and he's not afraid to get his nose dirty and go to the front of the net for those tip-ins and rebounds. And for NHL player comparison, it was hard not to see, JT Miller in him, right? I just think from, JT Miller, when he gets the puck in the slot, it's like, uh-oh. And I think Connor Geekie showed that as well. So a player I really like as well. Next is Jagger Firkus. Jagger Firkus was a player I didn't know about until a few days ago, and his, elusiveness, stick handling ability, and hard shot was hard for me to keep him any higher. Like 20 to 25 is definitely a good range for him. However, I think some teams will definitely be all over this player because he just screams like Marty St. Louis to me. He looks like a player who plays with a lot of heart and passion for the game, and the fact that he has that ability to be a 200-foot player, I loved it. Next, Isaac Howard. Isaac Howard plays with a tremendous amount of pace and intensity, and I still think he has that top six upside to him. If not, he'll be a third-line winger in the National Hockey League, not a doubt. And after Isaac Howard, I think the draft slightly falls off with Yurov, Glebe, Trixizov, Philip Mazar, and Miro Rashenko, and Kulik. I think those from 22 to 26 on my list, it's so similar. I think that's like another tier of forwards. And you can't go wrong with any of those picks, honestly. I could see them all developing into National Hockey League players. I probably have Miro Rashenko at the highest of those in upside. However, great National Hockey League players in the future. So next I'll get into Seamus Casey. He surprised me in his stick handling and his escapativeness as a defenseman. And, for his size, he was still able to, break up plays and be reliable in his own zone. And, just from his stick handling and playmaking ability, he could easily become a National Hockey League power play specialist. Next, I have Odelius. He was a defenseman that was very similar to Simon Nemec, honestly. He plays very smart, reads the play well, and, never overextends himself, and is always looking for the smart, quick option. Crisp passer, and a player I definitely like being a safe pick in this year's draft later in the first round. Next, I have Goncher, and the next four picks were, it was hard to find exactly what I liked. So Goncher was a player similar to Geekie, but probably didn't have as much of an upside as Geekie, maybe his skating ability, but a player I could easily see being a third, fourth liner in the National Hockey League, net front guy on a power play. I think he still has the offensive awareness, to score in the National Hockey League in the future. Uh, you know, uh, I could see it, but he could have just been, a junior hockey league bully for his size. But I still think he could become a National Hockey League player, and just from his puck battling ability, and I think he keeps it simple as well, and he'll find the point man and go to the front of the net. The player, NHL teams definitely would want on the roster. Next, I have Del Bell Blues. This was a player who, at first glance, I thought it was Michael Del Gall. It was hard not to think that. I think from a size standpoint and maybe stick handling. Uh, but I think he has a little more offensive ability than what we saw in Michael DeCall Jr. And this player, I saw a lot of, strong offensive awareness in him and his ability to drive the play for his teammates. So I definitely like this player and could see being a late first round, early second round. Next, I have Jimmy Snuggerlund, and he's a player that was higher on a lot of draft boards, and I failed to see it. I really did. He played with a lot of great players in the National Development Program, which might, overvalue his year. And he just didn't carry the play as well as his line mates did, but he still put himself in good areas on the ice to be effective, and I think he's a smart player, so I still think he'll fall around this range. And next I have Ryan Chesley. Ryan Chesley was a player I liked first glance, and the more I watched, the more I disliked. I think his decision making was a little slow for the high paced game. However, I still think he, you know, had good positioning and defensive, offensive awareness when guys are in front of the net, or just walking the blue line, making the simple, quick play, which you always want from your defenseman. So I think he's a safe pick who could develop, but I wouldn't take him any earlier. Um, I really wouldn't take him any earlier than like 27. I definitely take Casey before Chesley, just from an upside standpoint. But Chesley is probably a little more of a safer option because of his size, and he could become a top six defenseman. So that's it for my analysis. I know I went over it, quickly and off the top of my head, so not as in depth as I wanted to, but I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'm very excited for Thursday, and thank you for watching.